7. Misbelief in lack of self-control. Anne's eyes are downcast, her voice low and quivering. It just all seems so hopeless. Sort of, well, like I'll always be in this awful rut. Like there's no way out. I just can't seem to get going on anything. I mean, God knows I pray and pray, but nothing ever seems to happen. My prayers are just never answered. It's just so hopeless. Tears slide down her pale cheeks. I expected Jesus to change me when I gave my life to him 5 years ago, and he certainly has. That is, so many things in my life are really changed for the better, and he has blessed me in so many ways. But there's one thing I just can't seem to get anywhere with, and that's self-control. You know what I mean? She continues miserably. See, I need to get a job, but I just don't go out and look for one. I always make some excuse for not going out, although I do read the want ads, and sometimes I find certain jobs that look good. But I need to lose weight, as you can see, at least 30 pounds. I want to get down to 125 pounds, but I just can't do it. I've prayed and prayed about this, and then I just can't seem to get going. For the next 40 minutes, Anne delivers a barrage of can't-dos, each one prefaced by the sentences, "It's all so hopeless," or "I can't, I lack," and finally, the crunch. God doesn't care about me. If he did, he'd change me. David is a handsome 35-year-old used car salesman. His twinkling eyes and bright smile fade as he explains, "It's like I'm a victim or something. You should see the paperwork I've got to do, a ton of it, and I just can't get to it. My discipline stinks. And that's not all. I'm late everywhere I go. I oversleep. I do lots of things I really shouldn't do. I've always got a good excuse, but this last month, being late cost me about $3,300. The month before my being late cost me plenty too. I can't keep on like this." Shirley dabs her cigarette out in the already overflowing ashtray of butts. "I'd love to quit smoking, but I don't have the self-control. I'll probably croak of lung cancer, and my dying words will be, 'Got a light?' I've tried quitting, and once I lasted 3 months without taking a single drag on a cigarette. But here I am, smoking 2 packs a day. Some people have the self-control, and others, like me, don't. For most of us, there is no easy way out of life's difficulties and responsibilities. It's a lot easier to blame Jesus for our not going out and getting a job than it is to do something about the problem. It's a lot easier to oversleep and avoid the monumental task of long overdue paperwork than it would be to sit down and begin work on it. It's a lot easier to keep on smoking than it is to quit. It's a lot easier to sit in a comfortable chair with a bag of potato chips watching TV than it is to engage in a series of physical exercises or to diet. Elaine, a distraught mother of 2 children, cries, "I feel like I'm a rubber ball, just bouncing along where I'm thrown. I make all sorts of new resolutions, like how I'm going to get into reading the Bible more, or how I'm going to start exercising to get rid of this flab on my body, or how I'm going to get the house clean by noon and then do this or that. But then I'll sit on the phone all morning, or watch soap operas instead of reading my Bible, or I'll eat a dish of ice cream wishing I were thin. Where is self-control in my life? Aren't I supposed to have self-control? Isn't that one of the fruits of the Holy Spirit?" Many people try drugs, hypnosis, and even surgery in their desperate flight from facing responsibility and difficult tasks. But seldom do these methods bring lasting results, or the happiness so passionately sought. We asked Anne to face the reasons why she couldn't go out and get herself a job. "Well, I don't know. I just can't." "Are you afraid to apply for a job?" "Yes, I suppose so. I'll probably be turned down." "But you said you were qualified enough to get any number of jobs." "Yes, that's true. But that doesn't mean anything. I guess I'm just afraid of rejection." "But why are you afraid of rejection? What's so bad about being rejected?" "Are you kidding? What's so bad about rejection? That's the worst thing in the world. A person likes to feel accepted and wanted." "You said you're qualified enough to land a good job. You said you've had 2 years of business school and that your skills are good. What makes you think you'll be rejected when you apply for a job?" "Well, they want pretty girls." "Now, wait a minute. Are you telling yourself you're not attractive enough to get a good job? Isn't that obvious? Look at me. I'm at least 30 pounds overweight." Notice the self-talk here. Anne tells herself she can't get a job, but then reason tells her she probably could because she does possess the skills to get the kind of job she'd like. So then she tries another lie. She's not attractive enough. If this were true, we'd have a world with no overweight or unattractive people working. I used to have a body of a model. I was what they called a real knockout. Now I'm really disgusted with myself. And is it important for you to be a knockout in order to feel good about yourself? Suppose what you consider attractive isn't attractive at all. Suppose it was considered gauche for a woman your height and build to weigh less than 200 pounds. I weigh 140 now. Well, what would you do? I'd probably gain weight. And if you did gain the weight, putting yourself 75 pounds heavier than the knockout weight you speak of, would you consider the weight gain to be the result of a lack of self-control? Probably not. I would have gained it because I set my mind to it. Suppose you set your mind to losing weight. I'd lose it. The easy way out for Anne is to avoid her problems and do nothing. She puts up high goals for herself, worries she won't attain them, shrinks in dismay at imagined rejection, frets and feels angry and guilty, and never gets around to setting her mind to doing the things she desperately wants to do. Anne and others like her who suffer from lack of self-control tell themselves enough lies until the point is reached where they shout accusations at heaven. Jesus doesn't answer my prayers. He won't change me. He doesn't love me. Lies. It is not surprising when a Christian lacks self-control that his accompanying complaints are discontent, guilt, deep dissatisfaction with life, lack of self-confidence, and anger at God. We learn many of our misbeliefs through the media. The misbeliefs associated with poor self-control are encouraged by the media. Watch enough commercials on television, and you'll begin to believe that you should have everything you want. We easily grasp the invitation to own something appealing, or to be someone who has the approval of everyone around. These misbeliefs tell us to get what we want and get it right away, while we're still young, or while the sale lasts, or while it's there to get. Misbeliefs related to lack of self-control are: 1. If you want something, you should have it, no matter what considerations are involved. 2. It's terrible and unjust if you have to wait to get something you want, especially if you want it very much. 3. To be uncomfortable or frustrated is terrible, intolerable. Avoid distress at all costs. 4. You cannot control your strong desires. They are needs, and you can't stand it when they are not satisfied. Any time you have to spend being frustrated or ungratified is unendurable. 5. You can't stand pain or discomfort. 6. You can't stand not sleeping very well. 7. You can't stand it if others don't treat you as your doting parents did. 8. You can't stand it if circumstances aren't the way you want them to be. You may endure things as they are, but they are terrible, and you'll let that be known. 9. You can't stand exerting yourself or having to make an effort. 10. You can't stand failure of any kind. 11. You can't fight your desires. They're much too strong for you to expect yourself to handle them. 12. You can't quit because you're too weak, and besides, even though X is bad for you, it meets your need for gratification. X stands for whatever habit happens to be the problem. 13. You're entitled to inflict your demands upon others. Several generations of parents have been reared on these notions and have passed them on to their children. Psychologists and pastors' offices swell with men, women, and children who are the extensions of these misbeliefs. So-called progressive educational methods often foster the belief that we ought to get and have what we want and like, discarding all else. A young couple is having Sunday dinner in a restaurant with their 2-year-old son. He sits on a toddler's seat placed on a chair and begins kicking the table with his foot. "What's the matter, sweetie?" "He wants some bread." Mother hands the child a chunk of bread. 2-year-old son throws it on the floor and emits a shrill scream. "He didn't want the bread. What's the matter with him?" "He wants your pie." "He didn't eat his own pie. Something's upsetting him." Father wiggles his fingers at screaming child. "What's the matter, son? What is it? Here, play with your spoon." Son hurls the spoon across the table at father. "You take care of him. Maybe he has to go potty." Mother wiggles fingers at screaming child. "Want to go potty, sweetie?" Child screams and writhes on the seat. "Milk. Give him some milk." "Here, sweetie. Here's your milk. Come on, sweetie. Open the mouth. Attaboy. Here comes the choo-choo headed for the tunnel. Choo! Cho! Oh, all over my dress." Mother turns helplessly to father. "Why don't you do something?" "Maybe his stomach hurts," he offers. The interaction here is getting obvious. The child is quite capable of communicating his needs, but he has been systematically trained to believe that his parents exist primarily to spare him the trouble of coping and even of making his wants clear. Although the child could feed himself, he doesn't have to. Although he could handle some of his own problems or else ask for help, he doesn't have to. He was reinforced for yelling by the constant attention he received. Not only that, when his desires were gratified, milk, pie, spoon, potty, he learned that he could have everything he wanted and should not have to wait for it. He also learned he should never have to endure the slightest distress or discomfort. Later in life, Screaming Child has many of these misbeliefs reinforced and strengthened as his parents continue to give him everything he expresses the least longing for. He has things done for him which he could do for himself and is never made to wait. He is also taught that to be uncomfortable is terrible, and that above all he should never suffer distress. Now what happens to Child? He grows up and discovers his friends don't comply with his demands and wants. Everybody hates me. His teachers don't dote on him or make excuses for his lack of obedience. Nobody understands me or cares about me. He finds that other people don't want to do for him what he can do for himself. The whole world is rotten. He faces a society that requires him to comply with a certain moral code. He can't imagine denying himself something he wants, so when his peers offer him drugs, he has no reason to say no. He grows fat and sloppy in his appearance because he doesn't want to be inconvenienced or put upon. Living a chaste life is something he is not sure of. After all, one ought to get what one wants when one wants it. He believes all his fancies are vital needs which must always be gratified. These mistaken needs must be fulfilled, or he's miserable. Life stinks. I might as well kill myself. Self-control? What's that? If your teenager sounds like Screaming Child in advanced stages, don't be in a hurry to condemn yourself as a parental failure. You aren't. You have the right to make mistakes, the same as everybody else. Behavior is learned. Your child can learn to develop self-control in his or her life, as well as learn to avoid it. It's never too late. Most of the happy, productive people we know today are that way because they worked at it. They overcame. Perhaps they weren't always sterling examples of self-control and dedication, but today they have attained personal gains far exceeding anything they've known before. The devil has managed to convince millions of people that self-control is something other people have. I just can't control myself, someone says matter-of-factly. As long as a person continues to believe this lie, it will cause itself to come true. You will find that you actually can't quit whatever it is you wish you didn't do. You can't do the thing you want to do so dearly. You can't resist whatever it is you know you should resist. The can't is a lie. You can. Recognize the lie immediately. Look at these statements for a moment. 1. I can't lose weight. 2. I can't control my physical passions. Remember what we said earlier. You control your feelings by your thinking. If you think and tell yourself you can't control yourself, you probably won't be able to. Can you change those sentences? Truth. 1. It's ridiculous and dumb to think I can't lose weight. Of course I can lose weight. I can say no to myself and my appetites. I can stop eating fattening foods. I can count calories. I can join Overeaters Victorious. I can lose weight. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. 2. I certainly can control my physical passions. Jesus died on the cross to deliver me from every shred of unrighteousness, and I certainly will not sink to fleshly indulgence. Not I. It's a lie that I have no self-control. Once fail, always fail misbelief. There are many lies regarding self-control or lack of it. Some people actually train themselves to believe they are weak, worthless, and inadequate. These people tell themselves, I can't do X because I'm so helpless. I'm a failure at absolutely everything. Marcia failed to finish her 2-year course of study at a church-affiliated Bible school. She didn't keep her job either and had to move in with her sister and her husband. She began going to singles bars where she met a young man and began a relationship with him that included sex. He vanished from her life when he learned he had gotten her pregnant. Without a job, without money, without a home except the couch in her sister's living room, and pregnant, Marcia's outlook on life was grim. Marcia taught herself to believe she was a weak person. She believed she was worthless, inadequate, and helpless. She told herself she had piled up so many failures in her life. What else was there left for her but more failure? Failure, failure, nothing but failure. What's the use? Why go on? Once fail, always fail is a misbelief and a lie. If you look at history, you can see what a gross lie it is. The old adage, if at first you don't succeed, try again, is not unsound advice. Marcia, with help, needed to learn to appreciate herself, to value herself, to see that she was indeed an important human being whom God was deeply concerned about. From there, she could learn to practice those behaviors which reinforce that truth. Things that were good for her and not harmful. Eventually, she realized she could return to school and finish her education. She found an apartment for herself and the baby in the same building as her sister, and developed many intimate friendships with other Christians who loved and cared for her. Marcia found her real self in Christ Jesus, who never ever said, "Once fail, always fail." Shirley is a woman of 36, pretty and hardworking, but distraught over her cigarette smoking. She feels trapped in a vice with no way out. "It's no use. I've tried quitting and I can't. I always start again." Do you believe that when a person tries and fails at something, it then becomes impossible? Shirley thinks for a moment. I guess not. I applied to several schools for my teaching job. I was turned down 8 times before I finally landed the job I have now. So that destroys your original hypothesis. I failed before, so I always have to fail. My brother quit smoking a few years ago, and he says he doesn't even think about smoking anymore. Says he doesn't even miss it. Had he ever tried quitting before? Sure, he tried lots of times. He managed to quit for a few weeks once, and then he quit for a couple of months another time. But then one day he just gave them up, and hasn't lit another one since. Shirley, do you see the point? Your brother tried to quit several times, the same as you have. Then one day he finally did quit for good. It's absolutely untrue to tell yourself that past failures prove you must continue to fail. Shirley clung to her misbelief like a child clings to a teddy bear. If she could convince herself that her habit wasn't her own fault, that she was somehow an innocent victim, she could go on smoking and not have to experience the unpleasantness of saying no to herself. The lie, "I can't do something because I haven't been able to do it before," is untrue and defeating. Jesus sets us free to be the people we were meant to be, whole, beautiful, and capable of taking his strength as ours. "Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. Yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness." To gain self-control, it is important to identify the misbeliefs in what you tell yourself. Very likely you will find that your self-control problems are related to the following list of lies. Never let yourself get away with mouthing one of these lies once you identify them. Misbelief self-talk. Nobody cares about me anyhow, so why should I even try to be slim, sober, even-tempered, a non-smoker, or whatever? I've had such a terrible time of life, or I've been so mistreated, I owe myself a little indulgence. So I'll go ahead and smoke, drink, eat, steal, or whatever. I'm such a worthless wretch, it doesn't really matter one bit if I destroy myself, hurt myself, get addicted to something harmful, or whatever. I've worked so hard and done so well, I ought to just steal something, drink, smoke, gorge on food, or whatever. I need blank, fill in the blank. I can't go on without blank, fill in the blank. Use determination and energy in arguing against each of these misbeliefs with the truth. The Lord is upholding you with his right hand. The Apostle Paul says, "Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him." He tells the Corinthian Christians, "Be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord." And his prayer for the Christians at Ephesus was that the Lord would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might by his Spirit in the inner man. Where are we strong? In the inner man, the inner person, in our souls where our thoughts toss and tumble, waiting to create our feelings and our actions. When Paul says, "I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me," he gives us a dynamic lie-shredding principle to stake our very lives on. This verse is true of the entire domain of self-control behavior. Paul was writing of his own experiences as he voluntarily went without, suffered, and was deprived for the sake of Christ. I can do all things, he triumphantly declared for the ages to hear. In order to have self-control, you must actively counter your misbeliefs with the sword of the Spirit, the truth. How much of our behavior is helpless? Connie, who is 65 pounds overweight, says she can't lose weight. She's helplessly fat. Her weakness is ice cream. We asked her to imagine she was sitting in an ice cream parlor with an enormous ice cream concoction sitting in front of her. Picking up her spoon, she is about to dive into the thing, when suddenly from behind her, she hears someone speak. "Drop that spoon," he says menacingly. She's stunned for a moment. "I said drop it, lady," the voice repeats. She then feels something cold and hard against her temple. The voice is fierce. "This is a gun, lady, and if you take one bite of that ugly mess, I'll blow your head off." Connie's reaction is immediate. "I wouldn't eat the ice cream," she gasps. "You mean you wouldn't touch it?" "I wouldn't touch it." So much for helplessness. Shirley, who insists she absolutely can't quit smoking, has a sudden change of mind when we ask her to imagine a $1,000 bill placed between her and a package of cigarettes. Imagine someone saying to you, "If you refuse to touch another cigarette for the rest of the day, this $1,000 bill is yours." Shirley's face brightens. "I wouldn't go near a cigarette," she laughs. We continue the story. And then suppose at the end of the day, when you've received your $1,000 bill, another one is placed before you and a voice says, "Shirley, if you stay away from cigarettes for 24 more hours, you may have earned another $1,000 bill." Shirley is delighted. "At this rate, I'll be rich. I wouldn't even want a cigarette." Suppose then, at the end of the 24-hour period, when you've earned yourself another $1,000, there's held before you a ticket for a round-trip 4-week vacation to Hawaii. You're told, "This Hawaiian vacation is yours if you refuse to smoke for 3 days in a row." "Great," Shirley says. And then, as a bonus, your benefactor tells you, "For every week that you do not smoke or take one puff of a cigarette, you will receive a certified check for $1,000. Shirley laughs loudly. "I see what you mean. With that kind of an offer, I'd quit smoking in a huge hurry. I'd even go on an anti-smoking campaign." You are not helpless. You do have control over your life. You can do what you think may be impossible. I can't deny myself misbelief. Is it so painful, really, to deny yourself something? Is it, in your mind, somehow in the same category as death and dismemberment? When you feel hungry, thirsty, sleepy, frustrated, nervous, or dissatisfied, do you think you're in the pits of hell? When you are forced to endure discomfort, interruption, or thwarted plans, do you tell yourself the world is coming to an end? Sometimes it is not easy to deny yourself. It's not easy to go without something you desperately want. Not easy to give up something you dearly prize. Not easy to lose something you cherish. But sometimes for the sake of a higher, more noble life, it's necessary. Most of the time, in fact, you'll find that gaining something valuable in your life will depend on being willing to tolerate distress, anxiety, discomfort, and discontent. Your greatest achievements are often won because you are willing to put up with situations which are often downright unpleasant. You can deny yourself. You can say no to yourself. It is not the end of all things if you have to suffer pain. You can stand it. You really can. Max, a brilliant graduate student in psychology, thought he was a person who would go to pieces if he had to deny himself something that was really precious to him. Then one day his wife left him and took the children with her. Max took it hard. He managed to stay in school in spite of his suffering, but his life was a wreck. He started drinking to ease the pain, which only increased his feelings of guilt and self-worthlessness. It took a lot of effort on Max's part to finally say to himself, "Okay, so my family is gone. I'm alone, but I don't have to be lonely. I don't have to drink to ease the pain either. I can stand pain. It won't kill me." Max did 3 dramatically life-changing things. 1. He realized he was self-destructing with his misbelief that his life and happiness depended upon another person. Happiness depends upon our relationship with Jesus. No other person should be the controlling force in our lives. "Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve." 2. He argued against his misbeliefs. He spoke truth to himself. "I loved my wife and still do, but Jesus is the Lord of my life." 3. He denied himself the temptation to wallow in self-pity and loneliness by refusing to continue drinking to ease his pain. I can stand pain. You can deny yourself. You can wait for the thing you want. In your patience, possess ye your souls. Your soul is your intellect, emotions, and will. How large a part patience plays in the security of your soul. Speak the truth to yourself. Tell your soul that all is well. You can successfully live through inconvenience, discomfort, distress, and other negative feelings.